We're looking at Martha today, and we're also going to look at Mary, number 1. But Mary, number 1, is not who I would normally have chosen under normal circumstances as Mary, number 1. To me, Mary, number 1 would have to be Jesus' mom, okay? But since Martha comes first, for us, Mary, number 1, is Mary of Bethany, her sister. So we're putting them together. The handout is pretty much exclusively Martha's. It is Martha's portion in the book, but since she and Mary are so close, it kind of covers Mary also. So I didn't include any of the portion about Mary in the handout because it was already 8 pages long. So hopefully that'll be okay. It's going to have to be either way. So Martha, the name Martha is the feminine form of the word Lord or Master. So that's what Martha apparently means. Mary's name, a little bit different. It's Maria is the name in Greek. And it seems to mean a few possible things, from bitter to bitterness, and even rebellion. Take what you will from that. I don't guess necessarily there has means anything really. Of course, we could definitely relate bitter and bitterness to Mary, the mother of Jesus, but we're not ready to talk about her yet. We'll Lord willing, see her next week as Mary number 2. But Martha is the older sister of Mary and Lazarus of Bethany. She was a faithful disciple of Jesus, and she was a host to Jesus on multiple occasions, several occasions it seems, especially in his final week. But her legacy really is that of on one occasion she infamously told Jesus, or asked Jesus, to rebuke her little sister for not helping with the serving. That's Luke chapter 10. And, by the way, she was gently, ever so gently rebuked. It seems to me at least, very gently rebuked, or at least course-corrected a little bit for that. And then, of course, Mary is, I put the younger sister of Martha and Lazarus. It seems maybe Lazarus was the youngest, so I mistyped there. But she's the one who chose to sit at Jesus' feet and hear his teaching instead of helping her big sister with the serving. And then, sort of exactly contrast to Martha, was ultimately commended for her choice. So, we're going to look at these two. Already? Something? Haven't even said anything yet.
I've read it all.
Okay.
When he refers to it as Martha's house,
Yeah.
we were discussing this in Bible class this morning, since all of us there were middle children. Your parents have a right to correct and rebuke you. But older siblings telling you what to do, you ask somebody to do something, it's fine. But there are those of us, and like with the word with Mary, I see Martha telling her what to do, and Mary said, you've done this all my life, but I'm not listening.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not that you're rebellious, but it's like, you're not telling me what to do.
Yep, that's how it works sometimes. Most of the time. Which one are you then?
I'm a middle sister. I don't tell anybody.
So you must... You what?
I don't tell anybody what to do, because I don't want the responsibility.
And you don't listen, right? And if anybody tells you what to do. Sounds like it from experience to me. But... yeah, anyway, we won't go there. But yeah, Martha was obviously the oldest. Yeah. You can imagine with Jesus there, why Martha would be increasingly frustrated, but she wouldn't say anything because Jesus was here. We have company. See, we have company. And so, you tend to behave a little differently when you have company. And so, whereas Martha may otherwise have been very quick and easy to say, chirp at her sister, and get up and, say something. It seems that she wasn't saying anything, didn't say anything, until finally she's like, couldn't take it anymore. And so that's what happened. Jesus was over at their house, just to refresh our memories or if we're unaware. Martha, this Luke 10:38 and following, sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. She went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. So Mary is sitting there. Presumably Jesus was already, it's not like it was just Jesus and Mary. The others were obviously there too. It seems the disciples would have been there. Jesus was probably talking with them maybe, and Mary was just sort of, she placed herself there. She wanted to listen to whatever Jesus was saying. Or maybe he was talking to Mary directly. We're not really told. She was just sitting there listening to Jesus teach. Now, Martha, and I think this is a good word here, a good translation, she was distracted. Your version might say something different there. Very, very, very likely might. But the word means, that's what the word indicates. She was distracted. And that kind of, the old versions say cumbered about. We don't really talk like that, but that has a different connotation to me than distracted. She was distracted. Distracted seems to be a word that would suggest they're already suggesting that there are other things that are more important, and she was distracted by these other things. And she felt like her sister should have been doing it too. But she wasn't. So every time she may have been going through the house, all over the place, doing this and that, and making sure everybody had everything they needed. And every time she comes in here and sees her sister sitting there on her rear end, she gets more flustered and more and more and more until finally she doesn't address her sister. Maybe this was a sign of respect to Jesus. Or maybe it's like, if you tell her, she's more likely to listen. But whatever her reasoning was, she turns to the Lord and says, we get a little taste of Martha's character in this and the next account we're going to look at in John, where she had a certain way of bluntness with Jesus that we don't see very many people have. It's kind of interesting, actually. Look at her words. Look at how she went to, do you not care? A rhetorical question that sounds kind of smart aleck, almost. Don't you care? Do you not care? It implies he doesn't care. Or is it not bothering you?
Can't you see?
Yeah, can't you see that my sister ought to be up helping me?
Did she see Jesus grow up?
Hard to say. I don't know of any indication that they knew each other from early on, but they could have.
This interaction is how much you would say that to someone that you're pretty...
Yeah, that you're close with. So I think it's very clear they were close. Now, why they were so close, and not just her and him, all three of them and Jesus were very close. And it seems like there may have been a deeper connection than just, this is the place where I stay regularly whenever I'm in town or whatever, however we would put it. Maybe there was something more there, but don't you care? Doesn't it bother you at all? So tell her to get up and help me. Now, file that in your back of your mind whenever we're going to turn over to John 11 and see the way she approached Jesus then, after Lazarus died. Well, she probably didn't expect the answer that she got. It looked like this: Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. So, to answer her rhetorical question that didn't need to be answered, yes, I do care. But to answer your request, no, I'm not going to tell her to get up. I'm not going to tell her to help you. So, we're trying to focus on Martha at first, at least. And I think the book, the way they handle, some of the women, which all the women of the Bible was written almost a decade after all the men of the Bible by this same man. So he sort of does it differently. That's why it's 8 pages long. But Martha was a very hospitable woman. It was her house. We made that connection there, verse 38. Martha welcomed him into her house. It was their house, but it was her house, because that would suggest she was the oldest, and that their parents were no longer there, around. So Martha was very hospitable. She took it very seriously to be a good host, especially when Jesus is your guest. But I have no doubt that Martha was probably this way with every guest. That's just my speculation. But she seems to be the type that took it very seriously. It was a personal thing to her. It affected her. I'm not going to have the house in a wreck. I'm not going to have a shortage of provisions or accommodations. I take this seriously, and to her credit, that's an honorable thing. But on this occasion, I think, yes, Luke tells us she was distracted with a much serving, but then she also got distracted by her sister. That was maybe her biggest distraction, was her sister. But that's why she put it to him she needs to be helping me. But the gentle rebuke was, and I heard, in fact, it may even be in here where it says, the comment may have been made that neither one was wrong or better than the other. That what Martha did was not wrong or bad, and what Mary was doing was not wrong or bad. I would submit that Jesus' words do seem to lean in the direction of what Mary's doing is better than what you're doing. And that's just because he said, Mary has chosen the good portion. And almost as if to say, what Mary has chosen is better. Mary's chosen the better portion.
Right, but at the same time, it's kind of like maybe Martha was thinking that if Mary would help her, then they both could have sat down with Jesus. Like,
maybe.
Somebody has to get the food ready. If you're
Yeah.
people to help, somebody has to do that, so there has to be someone.
Yeah, Jesus doesn't say you shouldn't be doing any of that. And he doesn't say Mary shouldn't be doing any of that either. But again, notice Luke's word. Martha was distracted with much serving. So it's not that all of this was thrust upon her and she was in over her head by no doing of her own. She probably had done enough already. I mean, she's going above and beyond. And that's what Jesus seems to be suggesting. You are anxious and troubled about many things. Lighten up a little bit. Have a seat. Take a break. We're all good. We got it all. We got what we need. Just rest. Take a rest. What Mary's doing, but notice he also says, you're anxious and troubled about many things, but only one thing is necessary. Now we could probably get into what he meant by that.
Doesn't Luke's account say that this Mary, was the one that washed Jesus' feet with her hair? And he indicated that she had, I've come in and you've not done anything for me, but this woman, much has been forgiven. Now, if Martha, I think one of the things that Martha did that warranted her to do was she complained. If you want to do something for the Lord, you do it. But you don't expect somebody else you don't tell other people what to do. But he could also be saying, your sister Mary needs this more. You know what I mean? She needs to hear what I have to say. She has chosen to change her life, and she wants to hear what I have to say. So,
I didn't see it that way, that she needs it more. It seems to me that Jesus is very gently correcting her. If we don't want to say rebuke, at least correcting her attitude or her priorities. I would say priority.
In other places, to not be so anxious. So being so anxious and troubled is not necessarily a good thing.
Yes, everybody's different. So there could be some women who are in Martha's position, and they're not anxious and troubled at all. They're still hospitable, and they want to make sure everything's okay, but they're not stressing about it. It's just like it is. It is what it is, and they're calm, cool, and collected, or whatever. Couldn't really be bothered or distracted. But Martha was the kind that you can sense that even if it doesn't say it, she was stressed. She was stressing about this. Like I said, taking it seriously. But the Lord just sort of gently directs her, like, don't look down on your sister. And he could have been a lot of different ways, like, take it easy on her. She's not as good at this as you are, so she's okay. Or don't worry about her. You are the one with this responsibility. But he hints at that what she's done is better. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that is built into his statement, that she's chosen the good portion. Some things are more important than others, and sitting at my feet right now, listening to my teaching, taking it in, is better than these other things. More important. Yeah.
if perchance, as Debbie was saying, did they know each other before, whatever, if Lazarus and Jesus had been friends, little brothers, and remember in the teaching of Jesus, he goes, treat older women as if they're your mother or whatever, with the kindness, and younger women, as sisters. He is, I think, exemplifying that in the way he's dealing with both of these women. It could have turned into a big mess.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's like all these things that you need to do are necessary for people to be hosted in your house, but you gotta hear what I have to say.
Yeah, you can imagine that, in a culture where hospitality is a very important thing, it was probably different from house to house. Like, what is your standard of hospitality? Some people, it's like you've got a bed to sleep in, and here's a pitcher of water for the night. See you in the morning. That kind. Whatever you want to do. If you want to go out somewhere, you want to do this. Here's your room. That's that. Whereas other people might do that much, but then it's also like we have dinner at whatever o'clock. We'd love to. You can join us if you want, or you can stay up here in your room if you want, or whatever. And then other people might be like, the whole thing revolves around you as the guest, and this is your spot. We're going to have this meal in your honor. You're our honored guest, and do you have enough? Do you have enough? Is everything okay? Do you need more? And all this, and that seems to be what Martha was. She was that kind of person, and Jesus is like, take it easy. Yeah.
Isn't hospitality one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit?
It's certainly a virtuous,
Yeah.
thing.
So I just feel like Martha was given that area that she might have been a little OCD.
Maybe, yeah. I think she probably was.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Her priorities got just a little.
She was obsessive. She was obsessing over this. Yeah.
I see it less of a rebuke and more of it is just calm down.
Yeah. Yeah. At the same time, he doesn't just say, leave her alone. He says, she's done right. what she has done, she's made the right choice, the good portion, which seems to put it in contrast to what she's distracted with at this time. And again, when we consider she was distracted, and then, so Luke uses distracted, Jesus uses anxious and troubled. So it's like what Mary's doing is not just okay, it's right. She's done a good thing.
One footnote says that it's the only thing that will last.
Okay. And the one thing is necessary, is that what you mean?
The one thing
Yeah.
is necessary. And so to me, it looked like food is going to pass. But what she's looking at is eternity.
Yeah.
And so I think
And we get,
we all get
yeah,
distracted.
we get in that too, where we miss the moments, like being present in moments because we're.
Yeah. We're distracted with much something. And in Mary's case, it was much serving, which, again, is an honorable, virtuous thing. She was being hospitable, which was a very virtuous trait in the Jewish culture, but also in Christianity. It's highlighted as a good thing. But she was maybe too far. She had gone too far, and to the point where it was almost a stumbling block that she created for herself. Now, so remember that about Martha. Do you not care, Lord, that my sisters left me alone? Now we fast forward to John 11. And Lazarus gets sick. Their little brother. It seems to me to be that it always has appeared to me that he's the baby brother, and then his two sisters are older than him. As to how old Martha is, I'd never really considered it until now. With their dynamic, was she older than Jesus? Or was is she closer to Jesus' age and Lazarus being younger? I never really considered it. It may be that Martha was older, but we just don't know. But Lazarus gets sick. She and Mary send word to him where he was that he's sick. But Jesus doesn't come. He waits. And when he heard, it says he stayed 2 days longer before he comes. And then after that, he said, okay, let's go to Judea. And he gets there, and Martha hears that Jesus is here. He's finally arrived now, days later. Lazarus has been dead for 4 days now. So Lazarus died, never showed up. The next day rolls around, the next day, and now 4 days dead. Now she hears Jesus has arrived, or he's approaching. She goes out there, John 11, verse 20, goes out to meet him. Mary remained seated in the house. Kind of ironic language, considering what we just talked about. But Martha is the one that goes out to meet Jesus, and she says this in her characteristic blunt way. Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. See that? That fits right into the character of, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve all by myself? Lord, if you had been here, my brother would still be alive. But that's not all she said. She said, even now I know that whatever you ask from God, He'll give it to you. So, it's just, again, we get a little taste of her character from the way she approached Jesus before. Perfectly in harmony with that character is the way she approached Jesus here. But again, you also get that sense of these were close. Jesus was close with this family. And if that's not clear enough, John inserts in there in verse 5, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Well, Jesus loves everybody, right? Duh. So of course, John knows that. So why did he have to say this? Because clearly they had a special relationship, a special bond. There was no romance. There was nothing romantic between Jesus and Martha, nothing romantic between Jesus and Mary. They were very close. And you can tell that by the way they talked to him. So Jesus tells her that your brother's going to rise again, and she misunderstood him to mean sort of like I just said, I know everybody's going to rise again because of the resurrection on the last day. It's not what Jesus meant, obviously. But clearly she learned a thing or two, even more than she already knew about Jesus. She learned a lot more that day because Jesus told him to rise, to come out, and there he comes. We'll make mention, though, since we're throwing Mary in here as well. Mary had stayed seated in the house when Martha went out to meet him. And then when Mary comes out to meet Jesus, she says exactly the same thing. Exact same words that Martha said. Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. So, and this is where it says, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And then one verse later, or two verses later, I guess, Jesus wept. The shortest verse in the English Bible. I see that as verse 35 is a direct result of verse 33. Even though there's a verse in between there where he said, where have you laid him? And they said, come, we'll take you there. Jesus wept. It's because he saw the pain. And he saw Mary crying. He saw Martha crying. He also saw the Jews, even though their weeping would have been different, and probably sort of more of a presentation than anything. They were kind of like, it was just the way they did things. But Jesus wept because this little family meant a lot to him. And I wish personally there were more of their connection with each other, except for these two. Well, I say these two just very quickly. The next one is in chapter 12 of John 12. After Lazarus is raised, here they are again together. They gave a dinner for him. Martha served. Here we go again. We don't see any sort of anxious and troubled and Lord, tell her to get off her rear end and help me. But it's almost like she's got it back into perspective, and Martha's serving in a more desirable manner. But this Mary is the one who took that expensive ointment and anointed his feet and wiped it with her hair. And where Judas said, hey, we could have used this to give to the poor, that was Mary, Mary of Bethany, Martha and Lazarus' sister, who did that. Joe, do you have something else?
That song we sing, does Jesus care when my heart breaks and you lay someone you love into the grave, whatever? I mean, in this case, twice he is so moved and disturbed in the soul when he sees the result and the power the devil had of bringing death into this world, into this family, and the separation that happens when a life is gone.
Yeah.
Now, they all knew that in the resurrection they would come again. But in this, Jesus hurts when the devil has hurt us in this world. And he does care.
Yeah.
He does care where you are. And he wipes away the tears. You just see how much he cares for everybody.
Mm-hmm. He was about to raise Lazarus from the dead. So he obviously, seems to me, he wasn't crying because Lazarus was dead. But again, I connect it with verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and then the others weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. Where have you laid him? Come and see. Jesus wept. So, he does care. Even the little things he cares about, like Mary not helping Martha with the serving. He cares about that too. Just not in the same way that Martha cared about it. And that's the difference. That's the thing. We could have spent a lot more time with these two women, especially, Mary is kind of secondary to this whole, to both accounts. So I guess it's fitting, that, but we could have talked more about her with the anointing of the Jesus' feet with the ointment. But here's some lessons from Martha, and I guess by extension Mary, even though these are the ones from Martha. Number one, hospitality is a great Christian virtue. We definitely don't put as much emphasis on it as the Jews in their culture do, and that's not necessarily a good thing, I would say. I think we've lost a lot of that in our culture. Not that any of us would close our doors, but are they as open as they could be? I would say probably not. But anyway, number two, some are all Martha and no Mary. Others are all Mary and no Martha. But what's that?
I don't think you can be all Mary and not be a Martha too. Once you
Well,
learn,
I think,
not to serve.
well, based on that account, Mary was all Mary, wasn't she?
She was learning. She was going to get there.
Okay, well, in that case, then she would be a combination. Martha, we don't ever read, on that occasion anyway, that Martha ever sat down to listen to Jesus teach. Now, maybe she did after he said that, but at least, Luke doesn't tell us that.
Well,
So,
how else could you say you were the Christ? I know.
yeah, she obviously knew who Jesus was
Yeah, she
and
says
believed
I
it.
was the same to Peter.
But, some people are all one or the other.
Well, Roman just came and whispered in my ear, "You're a Martha."
Because she doesn't ever sit down and listen? Is that what?
Because she's serving all the time.
Because she's snappy? Is that what it is? Oh, because she's anxious and troubled about many things. That's got to be what it is.
That's a best.
When you look at it that way, you're definitely a Martha, yeah. Anxious and troubled about many things and more.
And caring for others.
Yeah, and that too, yeah.
There's no way a Christian could not care for somebody else and be a Christian. It's number one. Hospitality is thinking of others more than yourself. I mean, that's what it is. Caring more for, what does that person need? How can I help that person? That's what it is. So if you hear what Jesus says and you remain married, you're not going to get there because you didn't get to number one.
Yeah. So, Mary or Martha was so distracted with one element. What she needed to do, she could actually learn something from her little sister. So it's kind of like the old, the preacher's preaching a sermon or whatever, and somebody's sitting there in the pew thinking, boy, I hope so-and-so's listening to this. And really, maybe you're the one that ought to be listening to it. It's like, you could actually learn a little bit and just tweak it just a little bit. What Martha was doing, her heart was in the right place, and she was doing it with all her being, fervently and diligently. She just needed to tweak it a little bit and actually learn something, whereas Martha was probably thinking, she needs to take a hint from me and get up and start working. In reality, Jesus is like, well, actually, you could actually learn something from your little sister. Just tweak it. What you're doing is good, but the spiritual is infinitely more important than the physical and practical. Number 3, to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn of Him is the good portion. That was Jesus' words about what Mary was doing. And we can't sit at His feet per se, but we can certainly open up the Scriptures and learn from Him. Number 4, we must keep so-called secular service in its right place, conscious that both serving and learning are duties, and in both we should honor God. So that's kind of what I just said. Martha needed to tweak just a little bit, and not downplay the learning aspect from Jesus. After all, Jesus wasn't going to be around forever. So Mary was actually taking advantage of the time that was left. How amazing it would have been to be one of the, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus with Jesus there every night for at least the last week of his life. Every night he went to their house to sleep, but I bet he didn't just walk in and go to bed. I bet what nights that must have been. Number 5, we should trust the Lord with our cares, responsibilities, and sorrows, knowing that He's able to undertake for us. So I think they did that. Number 6, we must offer our best to Him who broke the alabaster box of His own body, that heavenly forgiveness and fragrance might be ours. That's a reference to John 12 with the ointment. Hey, what a waste, that's very expensive. That could have been a lot of money. A lot of poor people could have benefited from that. Well, how much, Jesus commended her for, no, she's done, again, defending marriage, she's done a good thing. But how much more did Jesus do for us? Not some expensive ointment, but Himself. And not just in death either, but every single day of His life, it was given for us.
I think what Jesus taught in Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 6:25, is a good balance for this, because it said, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink, nor about your body, what you'll put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? That doesn't mean we walk around without clothes. That doesn't mean we starve.
Yeah.
Those are necessary items, but there's only one thing that's eternal.
Yeah. Don't be anxious about those things. It's not to not give any thought to them, but don't be anxious to the point of distracted, like Martha. She was distracted. It's not that what she was doing was bad; is she was distracted. She allowed those things to distract her from maybe some other things that were more important. All right, Lord willing, next week we'll look at Mary, number 2, the mother of Jesus. Then we'll look at Mary, number 3, a.k.a. Mary Magdalene. And not quite as much to say about her unless we want to dive into tradition and a bunch of stuff that's 50-50, whether it's made up or truthful. But we can learn a lot from Martha and Mary, like we've already said. Just bring the two together. In the middle is the happy combination, as Mr. Lockyer, our author here, put it, is the mixture of both. Yes, the practical service, but not losing sight of the more important things, which I would say would be evangelistic efforts, growth, spiritual growth of our own, and then trying to lead others to Christ is infinitely more important than the more practical things, which should not be downplayed. Neither one should be, but there is a hierarchy, and the spiritual certainly supersedes the physical and practical.